Okay, so I am a whore, but not that kind of whore. I'm a gym whore. I pop around from gym to gym to gym, kind of like the name implies. I've earned that nickname. Last time I counted, I have been a member of 18 different gyms in the Austin area, which is ridiculous. But this is why. The cycle goes like this. I have this crazy life epiphany. I decide the gym is going to change my world and solve all of my problems. I sign up, I commit to life, and then 6 months later, we divorce. It was during one of these recently single gym me's that I was looking for a new place to belong. And at this point in our lives, my mother was dying a very slow and awful death, and my siblings and I were all taking care of her. And I decided, rather than take a load off, what if I added to this intense physical and psychological pain a nice layer of really intense physical pain? And I decided I was going to find the toughest gym I could find across the land. And when I found this gym, I knew it was perfect because, first of all, I had never belonged to it before, which was pretty exciting. And then also, just the name told me it was going to offer everything I needed. It was called the On It Academy. It's not a gym. It's an academy, and it's where people go if they want to be on it, and on it is exactly where I want to be. And so at 5:30 in the morning, I find myself driving into this industrial complex where all these warehouses are. It's very nondescript, and I enter this building to start my basic training. And when I get in there, it looks basically exactly like what you might see on the remake of the movie Roadhouse. Everyone is very beefy, they're very confident, and they're very on it. And I really don't belong at this gym at all, but I am getting the fever. And there's murals, there's lots of dirty rap playing, it's very loud, and there's murals all over the wall, and one of those is this huge gorilla head that looks kind of like a fortune teller, and he's got this third eye, gemstone, and lasers are coming out of it, and he's screaming, and you can't tell, is it agony, is it ecstasy, is it both? And I don't know if it was the magical monkeys or if it was just the high testosterone in the air, but something was happening to me, and I was having almost like a spiritual experience lumping onto this gym. And of course, if you're having a spiritual experience, you need a guru, and my guru was the teacher. Her name was Brooklyn, and she was as tall as me, which I am not quite 5 feet tall, and she was so strong, and she was just such a badass, and I just could see myself in this tiny little Spitfire. And she had these really long fingernails that were very manicured, which just seemed in contradiction to her amazing bench press. And I just thought, you know what? This woman is going to help get me into this situation and take care of me. And she did. Because we had to do these little benchmark tests where they would have you do a certain activity, and then they would count your reps, and then they would write your results on this big chalkboard wall, which was probably very motivating for people, except for this particular benchmark was the pull-up test, and I couldn't do a pull-up. In fact, I was the only person in the class that couldn't even remotely do a pull-up, but Brooklyn had my back. And so she's like, don't worry, Lorrie, you can just grab the bar and hang on for time. And so while I'm hanging on this bar over my classmates, all of a sudden I get this kind of deja vu that turns into a horrifying 7th grade flashback. And I know that scares you all, but here we go. So I am walking down the crowded hallways at Moorhead Junior High. And I'll say that only in the 80s could you attend a junior high that was called Moorhead. Very bad. And out from behind a locker jumps this kid named Chris Brown, and he's shaped like a pencil, and he wears camouflage from head to toe, and he's got bright red hair that he sculpts into like a little faux hawk, and he has a million freckles, and he pulls out a can of silly string, which is also very 80s, and he sprays me down from head to toe, and as I'm standing there covered in silly string, he just points at me, and he laughs, and he runs off. Now, if this happened to me today, like if I was at HEB and this happened, I would have a very different response than I had in 7th grade. Because in 7th grade, I had one thought and one thought only, and that is, oh, I see, you're in love with me. And that's all I needed. That was enough of the confidence boost for me to then develop this full-on crush on this guy that I had never thought twice about before. And I decided I kind of needed to return the favor and send my love messages back to him in a cryptic way as well. So I would do just a little things that people might not have noticed. Like I'd sit on the left-hand side of the school bus every afternoon, and I'd press my face against the glass and hope that I could catch a glimpse of him skateboarding at the bowls. And then that wad of silly string that some might have just thrown away, I hung it in my locker. So every time I open and close that locker door, I could remember the origins of our love story. I was practically bursting with this love, and I could only tell my very tight circle of girlfriends. And so this crush was just burning inside of me. No one could know that I loved Chris Brown. And if someone was just smart enough or willing to decipher my cryptic love riddle, they would have figured it out. But nobody was figuring it out. And so I'm also going to trigger some of you that are at least 50 years old when I say these next three words. It was also the presidential fitness test. And I know if you've lived through this before, it's basically just like what they do at the Onnit Academy. They humiliate you in front of all of your peers and then tell you how bad you are at certain athletic activities. And there's sit-ups and there's the mile run, but there's also the bar hang. So I'm hanging on the bar over a gym full of my very pimpled classmates, and all of a sudden this kid named Charlie is pointing at me very gleefully, and I think, oh my gosh, I must be killing this presidential fitness test because Charlie hasn't pointed at anyone else that went before me. And as I'm dangling over my peers, he yells out, "Hey guys, look at her shoes!" And I realized that in one of my acts of rebellion, I had written in big black magic marker across both soles of my kids, "I love Chris Brown." And suddenly everyone is just erupting in laughter underneath me, and I am like frozen on the bar with a snarl of pain. And it's not just because my mouth is so dry and my braces are keeping my lips up. It's because I am in psychological pain so intense it feels like physical pain. And yeah, my biceps are tired, but more than that, I'm just thinking, how the hell am I going to undo this horrifying situation I've just gotten myself into? Thank God there were no cell phones at this time. And so I am hanging on the bar, and I'm thinking, oh gosh, if just a vat of acid could appear underneath me, I would just let go and drop into it and disappear forever. But then on the flip side, I kind of don't want to let go of the bar, because once I get down, I'm going to have to face the fallout of this really stupid mistake. And also, this adrenaline rush is really giving me a pretty damn good time on this presidential fitness test. And we were trained to believe that this mattered somehow. So I do end up, my biceps finally give out, and I end up coming down off the bar, and of course, it's all a wash. I don't really remember what happened, but I know that the terrifying story of the shoe incident has made its way down the hallway to Chris Brown, and witnesses report that he laughed harder when he found out about this situation than he did the day he sprayed me with silly string. And so, as it turns out, the cryptic love message with silly string, it was just bullying. And I misread the cues because I'm in 7th grade, and like many other 7th graders, that was my power skill. And one of my other power skills was being a really bold liar, like many other 7th graders. So I said, "What? I have no idea how that got on my shoes. I definitely did not write that. I do not love Chris Brown." I threw out the silly string, and for all intents and purposes, I just pretended like I would never love this guy. So flash to, I'm 50, I'm hanging on the bar over these peers. They're less pimpled, they're much more buff, and they're pointing at me gleefully, but there's nothing even written on my shoes this time. And they're actually being a little over-enthusiastic, and I'm starting to feel a little bit like Rudy in that sad football movie, because they are just cheering me on with a little too much enthusiasm. And I'm like, okay, guys, I get it, but like, why is my 22-second hang more exciting than the guy who went before me that just did 22 pull-ups with a heavy chain tied around his waist? But I don't care. I'm going to take anything I can get. And I get off the bar, and Brooklyn comes over, and I'm sure she's about to give me a pep talk. And I say, "Brooklyn, oh my gosh, I have got to tell someone here this story." And she's the only one I feel comfortable talking to. And I tell her the tale of this flashback that I have not thought about in 30 years. And as I'm telling the story and I get to the part about the shoes, she looks really excited. And I'm really excited because I'm finally having this like bonding moment with somebody at the gym. And then she goes, oh my God. But instead of saying, I can't believe that happened. Oh my gosh, that's so silly. Instead, she says, oh my gosh, I love Chris Brown. And I'm like, what? Chris Brown? How does she know my Chris Brown? And then I realized, oh my gosh, she's not talking about my Chris Brown. She's talking about Chris Brown, the singer. And I'm like, oh no, I just turned 50 and I made this vow to myself that I was going to be much more honest with people, even if I don't want to be. And now I'm in this conundrum because, oh my gosh, I want to see this sparkle in Brooklyn's eyes so bad. I'm the teacher's pet and she's so excited. And I thought we were bonding over my love trauma, but we are not. We are bonding over two completely different Chris Browns. And so I'm in a dilemma, but then I say, you know what? I'm just going to be honest and I'm going to do the thing. And so I very bravely say to her, oh, no, not that Chris Brown. But she's so excited, she's just not even listening to me. And she's talking about her Chris Brown. And I'm like, do you not understand? When I was falling in love with my Chris Brown, your Chris Brown was -7 years old. This is not the same Chris Brown. But by then, I have tasted the Kool-Aid. I am too excited, and I am not going to give up this connection. I just can't, no matter how many 50-year-old vows I have made. And so as the months go on, I continue to force this facade that I love Chris Brown, which sounds like it could be pretty easy because I do like to conjure my inner Meryl Streep every once in a while, but pretending to like somebody that you've never listened to is harder than you might think. So I will tell you that my pull-ups did not improve, but what did improve? My body language, my ability to read subtle cues, I was on it. I would be like working out, and then Brooklyn would look over at me across the gym, and she'd point to me, and at first I would think something like, oh gosh, I'm doing something wrong? Is that something wrong with my form? And then she would point up to the speaker, and I'd be like, oh, Chris Brown, this has got to be Chris Brown. And I'd give her like a little nod, and I'd be like, hell yeah. And I might give a fist pump, and every once in a while I would think I might even be brave enough to give it a little lip sync, but I never took it that far. But I am telling you, I was with it, and I was on it. And then when a new person would join the gym, she would be like, oh, hey, guys, this is Lorrie. She loves Chris Brown. And I would squirm a little because I'd be like, first of all, hopefully this person doesn't try to connect with me over this because they will find out very right away. I don't love Chris Brown. And then also, the only thing I had heard about Chris Brown prior to this incident was that he had a reputation for not being too nice to the ladies. So I'd feel a little uncomfortable when people were like, I was being introduced as like the Chris Brown fan club president. But either way, I had to dismiss that 50-year-old vow I had taken, and I would just nod and shake my head and be like, I love Chris Brown, because there was no way that anyone at this gym was going to ever find out that I do not love Chris Brown.